Is there something dangerous in your environment? If there is, your dog's gonna know way before you will. They can see, smell, and hear things that we just can't. And they'll indicate with their body language when they do, if you pay attention. Here's a good example. I was on an off-leash walk just before dark with my dogs. Wild and Buffy here out front kept stopping and staring off in different directions, such as they did right here. I'm not cueing them to do this. I'm not asking them to wait. They are choosing to stop and suddenly stare. This is a very clear signal that there is something in our environment. And from their body language, I know it is not a person or another dog. However, I decided to leave them off leash and not call them back until the very end of this video. So let's see if you can tell from watching this video what changes in their body language that causes me to call them back. You'll notice that as they're going along, their tails are fairly low in a normal relaxed carriage. Their gait is very normal, but these two out front are not really stopping to sniff quite as much as they normally would. Another thing to note is when they stop and stare, they are doing it in varying different directions. This indicates that there are things around, but not one specific thing that they are hyper-focused on. Another thing to note is when they do go to sniff, it is brief, and then they keep moving on down the trail. So all of these things indicate while there is something in the general environment that is probably pretty close, it's not so close that I need to recall them. Now, I did stop here to call everybody back. However, it was just because Razzle here, who's coming up now, was falling too far behind. And with the current visibility, I could barely see him. You'll notice here that even when I am rewarding, Buffy looks behind us and is still vigilant. Wild also looks off to the side, and then Buffy does after him. So again, another indicator that there is something in the environment. Here again, you can see the body language is very relaxed, a very normal trot going on, and once again, they do both stop and stare. Buffy keeps going, and Wild looks off to the left. Neither one can pinpoint what it is, so they move on once again. But here's they're trotting along, watch their body language closely, because something is about to change that tells me that whatever it is suddenly much closer than it was before. And right there is that change that I mentioned. And this triggers me to recall them for real. And you can see from Wild's body language that he is concerned, because while he does come to me, he doesn't want to turn his back to whatever it is and sits waiting for his treat, looking in that direction. Now let's watch it again in slow motion and see if you can see that very subtle body language change that caused me to recall them. And I'll give you a hint. You should be watching Buffy on the right. It was dark, so it is slightly hard to see, but if you look right there, her tail actually raises. This tail raise is a signal that historically means for her that there is something that she can actively see or smell directly in our environment. And the tail raise often will precurse her running at it or barking at it. I'll zoom in a bit here so you can see it. See that tail fluff is nice and low, and then there it is as it raises above her back. And you'll get an even better view as she turns to run back towards me. This tail lift is very common for dogs who are about to have a reaction to something, or that they are seeing, smelling, or hearing something that is directly in their environment that they are having feelings about. Had I not seen this tail lift, we would have kept moving towards whatever it was, and she very possibly would have charged it. This is why noticing these slightly more subtle body language shifts can be so incredibly important. This is especially true if you have a reactive dog.